Hello, this is Gary with Ultra Plumbing, and this quick video is going to show how to replace a Moen Positemp shower cartridge, or otherwise known as a Moen 1222 cartridge. There are links in the description for all the parts and tools used in this video. The first thing you want to do is turn off the water to your house and drain the faucet. Then you want to use a 7/64 Allen key to remove the set screw that's in the handle, like you see in the video here. Make sure you remember how you took it apart and don't lose any of the pieces like the tiny set screw that we just took out of the handle. You can take pictures of the valve as you go if it'll help you remember how to put it back together after you're done. After you get the handle off, use a Phillips screwdriver to remove the screw from the black plastic piece that you'll find behind the handle. Sometimes this piece might be silver, but once that piece is out, remove the two white pieces that are behind it, and then remove the stop tube as well. Once the stop tube is out, remove the two Phillips screws that are holding the trim plate to the wall, like Justin's doing now. It may take a little while to get them out because they're pretty long. You may find some residue on the wall from the trim plate. It usually will come off pretty easily with a scraper or a Brillo pad. You don't have to use your fingernails like Justin did, but if you're so inclined, then go for it. For this next part, there is a small horseshoe clamp that is holding the cartridge into the valve body. As you see, we just pulled it out with needle nose pliers. Be really careful not to lose that piece, getting it in and taking it out, because it's really easy to lose it in the wall. For this next part, you're going to need to get yourself a cartridge puller. It looks like this. You can find them in most hardware stores and probably even Walmart, but I'll put a link in the description to find it on Amazon. Real quick before I continue, I just have to mention that you have to be careful how much pressure or stress you put on the valve body when trying to pull the cartridge out. It's good to use a flashlight to look in the wall and see what kind of pipes the valve is connected with. If it's connected with copper or PEX and the valve is secured in the wall pretty well with screws, then it's probably safe to put some good stress and strain onto the valve. Now, if the valve is connected with CPVC pipe and it doesn't seem like the valve is secured well in the wall, then you want to be extremely careful trying to pull the cartridge from the valve, because it's definitely possible that you can crack something in the wall when you do it. If you don't feel comfortable, then call a plumber. So with that out of the way, the first thing you want to do is place the puller onto the cartridge as seen in the video and tighten the little hex bolt at the end so it threads into the cartridge stem. Once the bolt is tightened into the stem completely, then hand tighten the large nut until it sits against the valve body. Once the nut is snug against the valve body, hold the cartridge handle with one hand and then turn the nut with a pair of pliers using the other hand. This can be the hardest part of the job, but if you're patient and take your time, you should be able to get it. Now, there is the chance that the cartridge could break. You may have the cartridge puller just pull the stem out completely, or it could break in some other way. I will try to make a future video where I show how to handle a situation if the cartridge breaks off inside of the valve. Tighten the large nut until you see the cartridge pull out about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. At that point, you can begin trying to pull the cartridge out. If it's hard to pull, you can try twisting it back and forth while pulling at the same time, as you see in the video. It can also help to keep the channel locks on the puller as you do it, and you may even want to put the channel locks directly onto the cartridge itself once you get it out far enough, as you're going to see here in a moment. Just keep working it this way until you get it out completely. Once the old cartridge is out, check the valve body and the surrounding area to make sure you got all of the pieces out. It's very common for some of these little black pieces to get stuck inside of the valve, so try to set them out on the ground or on the side of the tub to make sure you got all of them out. If you have to, use a flashlight and a probe to look into the shower valve body and see if there's any pieces in there. If there are, grab them with a needle nose pliers or a probe, as they will cause an issue with the new cartridge if they remain in there. Once you have all the pieces clear from the valve, grease up the new cartridge and get ready to put it in. As you can see, we're using a genuine Moen 1222 cartridge. I do not recommend using any type of aftermarket cartridge because there's a super high chance that it's going to leak the second you put it on. But once you grease up the cartridge, go ahead and insert it into the valve body. Make sure that the H and the C that are written on the front of the cartridge are on the up side and not on the bottom side. And make sure you hold the 2 black gaskets in place as you're pushing the cartridge in so that they don't get squeezed or pushed out. The new cartridge should come with this little white piece that you see around the stem here in the video. That little piece can be used to help push the new cartridge into the valve. Sometimes it will almost be as hard to push the new cartridge into the valve body as it was to pull the old one out. But if you push on it with channel locks, the way we are here in the video, you should be able to get it in. It's not necessary to twist it while pushing it into the valve body like Justin was just doing. You should be able just to push it straight in. We're able to do that just because we've done it so many times, but I really don't necessarily recommend rotating the cartridge as you're pushing it in unless it's just slightly to get it into position. Once it is seated all the way in and centered, you want to stick the little horseshoe clamp back in place carefully, making sure you don't lose it in the wall. Before you put the handle back on, make sure you have the stem oriented the proper way. As you'll notice, there's a slight notch in the stem that you see right here. That needs to be facing down when the faucet is off. But as long as you know that, you can proceed in turning the water onto the house and making sure that nothing's leaking. Then you can just put all the trim back in reverse of the way that you took it off. In case you're wondering what these little white pieces are, they're a temperature limiter. You can use them to set the stop at a different location, and then the hot side of the valve won't go through the full band. So it's basically if you want to make it so the valve won't get too hot. I find that most people want the temperature limiter set to the default, which is as hot as it can go. But if for some reason you don't want it to go too hot, you can use those little white pieces to set a new limit for the hot water temperature. If you look closely there at the stem, you'll see that the notch is not visible, which means it's actually facing down, which is the way we want it. But put the black piece back on the way it came, the way you see here in the video. Tighten the Phillips screw back into it. And then at that point, you can go ahead and put your lever handle back on with the set screw. Now, one thing worth mentioning when you're tightening this little black plastic piece on, it can seem like the screw's tight, but it's actually not. So if your handle comes, has give backwards and forwards in it, it's probably because you didn't tighten the screw on that black piece well enough. Just make sure you push kind of hard against it and tighten it when you're doing it to make sure it tightens all the way. But once you get the Allen screw set in the handle again, you can go ahead and turn it on and should be working properly at this point. But that's how you replace a 1222 Moen Positemp cartridge. And I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, we'd like to see them below. This is just another video of another Positemp cartridge that we replaced. I wanted to show this just so you can see kind of how easy they potentially can come out. Sometimes they will come out really easy like this video, and then sometimes they can be really hard like the one from earlier.